Welcome everyone. I thank you all for joining us for this webinar. Today I would like to talk to you about the importance of labeling complaints under the European Union's Medical Device Regulation or UMDR. I'm your host and speaker Vikram Parameshwaran. The agenda for today is to describe the listed topics. They are UMDR change summary, impact assessment for labeling, UMDR labeling requirements, labeling remediation, and our services. In this UMDR change summary section, we will explore about the topics like what are the key changes, MDD versus MDR, and its transition period. The UMDR is a new set of regulations that were introduced in May 2017, and they will come into full effect on 2028. These regulations are designed to ensure that medical devices sold within the European Union are safe and effective, and to provide a high level of protection for patients and users of these devices. The scope of the UMDR is broad and covers a wide range of medical devices, including everything from surgical instruments to pacemakers to diagnostic imaging equipment. The regulation applies to all manufacturers of medical devices, regardless their location, and requires them to meet strict requirements for safety, performance, and quality. But why MDD to MDR? Yes, it was needed because some blind spots are generally called as weakness is beginning to show up from organizations like CDMO, known as for Contract Development and Manufacturers Organization. To make it straight, in the benefit of our better understanding, we may remember the scandal of the defective breast implants in France a few years ago. Yes, this was a part of recognizing structural weakness in the system and inconsistent interpretation of directives in different countries. I hope now the interest started igniting with our fellow audience to know more on what is coming next. Like what are the changes, how in current market this will impact a label creation and the existing labeling of medical device, and what MDA has in it for labels and labeling creation. Come on, let's see. There are six key changes to understand in MDR when compared to MDD. We decode, understand, and implement the below key changes in an efficient way. They are device classification, QMS, quality management system, C, technical documentation, clinical evaluation requirements, identification and traceability requirements, and lost PMS, post-market surveillance system. In upcoming session, we will see how these factors are impacting the labels in very brief manner. Now, MDD versus MDR. It seems that in the MDR, no existing requirements have been removed, but more requirements are added alongside of existing MDD requirements. Let's look at some number comparisons. In MDD, there are 23 articles. In MDR, 123 articles. Yes, it's really 100 articles more. Then annexures. In MDD, there are 12 annexures, but little high, 17 annexures in MDR. Seems good. Coming to medical device classification rules. In MDD, there are 18 rules, but now in MDR, 22 rules. Pages from 60 to 175 pages. Yes, it's almost 115 more pages. It's a big number. The transition. The 3-year transition timer started from May 2017, aiming for complete implementation in May 2020. Due to COVID pandemic, manufacturers could not able to meet the given timeline. So EU Commission extended the timeline based on the device class. The extended transition deadline for Class 3 and Class 2B implant device is December 2027. For Class 2B non-implant device, Class 2A and Class 1 devices are moved to December 2028. For Class 3 custom-made and implant device is May 2026. The existing MD certificates are still valid. Also, the notified agency reissued MDD certificates are valid for 4 years and no later than 2024. Along with the certification timeline, the MDR regulation has other important timelines for the UDAMED and UDA implementation. So before we go into the next topic, I would like to take a poll. The poll is on the right side of your screen. The question is, after UMDR implementation, do you think manufacturers need to recall their Class 1 reusable device for relabel? I repeat, after UMDR implementation, do you think manufacturers need to recall their Class 1 reusable device for relabel? Thanks for your response. I see that some of the participants are not so aware of this. Okay, no worries. There is no requirement to recall class 1 reusable devices which are placed on the market under the MDD before the date of application of the MDR. In general, devices that have been lawfully placed on the market under the MDD before the MDR date of application can be made available and put into service until May 2025. I hope you got clarified now. The next topic is MDR impact on labeling. The significant changes from the regulation will ask the medical device business to review their MQMS design documents, templates, procedures, and overall process. The following items are key changes and affecting the labeling part. They are device classification, identification and traceability, vigilance and post-market surveillance, risk management, and the last clinical evaluation report and post-market clinical follow-up. The information to be supplied to user needs to be derived from various work streams because, as you know, the label is an end product in the overall UMDR implementation cycle. Also, first reaches the hands of patient or user of the medical device. So, the organization needs to set the priority for the work streams to start with remediation and pass the information to the labeling that's required to be notified to user. Device rules. Device rules are nothing but the classification of device with respect to specific rules. The classification criteria clearly explained under the under Annexure 8 of the MDR, which provides the overview about device classification principles, reclassification of some medical devices, and additional rules of classification. Due to this classification changes, all the manufacturers needs to reassess their device based on the current classification changes. Currently, there are 22 rules which are categorized into four types. They are invasive device, non-invasive device, active device, and special devices. Rule 1 to 4 for non-invasive devices, which are the devices that do not enter the body through any opening or through the surface of the body itself. Rule 5 to 8 for invasive devices, the devices that enter the body in whole or in part, either through an opening of the body or through the surface of the body. The next is active devices. The devices that needs any source of energy to function are known as active devices. These devices comes under rule from 9 to 13. And the last is special product, which comes under rule from 14 to 22. The MDA has recognized that there are combined medical devices that can be both invasive and active, or that combine a medical device with an IVD or a drug. For combined medical devices, classification depends on the determination of the main purpose, whether the main purpose is realized as a medical device or as a medicine or IVD. Next, device classification. Device classification is a critical aspect of the UMDR. There are four classes of medical devices. Class 1 devices are considered low risk and included devices like bandages, surgical instruments, and the contact lenses. Class 2A devices are considered medium risk and included devices like hearing aids, X-ray machines, and blood glucose meters. Class 2B devices are considered high risk than Class 2A devices and included devices like dialysis machine and infusion pumps. And the last Class 3 devices are considered highest risk and included devices like pacemakers, heart valves, and implant devices. The classification of a device determines the regulatory requirements that must be met before the device can be placed on the European market. Highest risk devices require more rigorous testing and certification, and the manufacturer must provide more extensive clinical data to notified body to demonstrate the safety and effectiveness of the device. Identification and traceability. Certainly, the MDA has introduced several new regulation and requirements for medical devices, including the implementation of UDI, Unique Device Identification, and the establishment of a European database called UDAMED. First, let's talk about UDI. A unique device identification UDI is a unique code that identifies a specific medical device and provides essential information about the device characteristics and its use. The UDI is composed of a device identifier and a protection identifier. The DI device identifier is a static code that identifies the device model number and manufacturer details, where the PA is a dynamic code that identifies the specific device instance such as the serial number and lot number. The MDR requests that all the medical devices have a UDI and that shall be placed on the labels of the device or on the packaging. And the same needs to be registered in the UDAMAT database too. Now let's talk about UDAMAT. UDAMAT is a European database that will serve as central repository of information on medical devices. It is intended to provide transparency and traceability in the medical device supply chain from manufacturers to patient. UDAMAT will include a range of information about medical devices, including information on the device's UDI, clinical investigation data, conformity assessment procedures, and post-market surveillance data. UDAMAT is also intended to support the exchange of information between member states and the European Commission. The MDR requests that all medical device manufacturers register their devices in UDAMAT before placing them on the market. UDAMAT will also serve as a platform for sharing information on adverse events and other safety issues related to medical devices. The implementation of UDA and the establishment of UDAMAT are significant developments for manufacturers, regulatory authorities, and patients. UDA will provide greater transparency and traceability in the medical device supply chain, while UDAMAT will bring a centralized repository of information on medical devices, enhancing patient safety and improving the effectiveness of regulatory oversight. UDA and UDAMAN are two critical components of the EU MDR that will enhance the safety and effectiveness of medical devices for patients and users. Medical device manufacturers must ensure that their devices comply with these regulations to meet the necessary regulatory standards and provide the best possible outcomes for patients. CR and PMCF. Firstly, a clinical evaluation report CR is a document that provides a comprehensive evaluation of the clinical data for a medical device. It is required by UMDR for all medical devices and it must be updated regularly throughout the life cycle of the device. The CR must demonstrate that the device is safe and effective for its intended use and must be based on relevant clinical data that is collected and analyzed in accordance with the principles of evidence based medicine. The CR must include a thorough evaluation of the device design, material, manufacturing process, as well as analysis of any potential risk related to with its use. The report must also include a detailed summary of any relevant clinical studies, include their methodology, results, and conclusions. In addition to the CR, the UMDR also requires that medical device manufacturer needs to establish a PMCF plan known as post-market clinical follow-up. The purpose of this plan is to collect and analyze the clinical data on the performance of device after it has been placed on the market. The PMCF plan must be developed in accordance with the device risk profile and must include a methodology for collecting and analyzing clinical data that is based on sound scientific principles. The plan must also include procedures for evaluating the results of the clinical data analysis and for taking any necessary corrective actions to ensure the ongoing safety and effectiveness of the device. It is important for medical device manufacturers to understand and comply with these requirements to ensure that their devices meet the necessary regulatory standards and provide the best possible outcomes for patients. Now coming to PMS. The MDR places a significant focus on post-market surveillance and vigilance throughout the entire life cycle of medical devices. This means that after a device has been placed on the market, it must be continuously monitored for any adverse events or problems that may arise. To ensure that manufacturers meet the requirements of the MDR, they must have a PMS system in place to collect and analyze data on the performance of their devices. This system must also include a vigilance reporting system, which that allows the manufacturers to report any adverse events or problems related with their devices to the appropriate regulatory authorities. The plan must also include a risk management system that allows manufacturers to identify and mitigate any risks related with their devices. Also, the manufacturer needs produce PSUR, known as for Periodic Safety Update Report. They want to submit this report to the notified body. For Class 2A devices, they want to submit on every 2 years. For Class 2B and Class 3 devices, need to produce on every year. UMDR on risk management. The regulation has placed a significant focus on risk management throughout the entire life cycle of medical devices. This means from the design and development phase to the post-market surveillance phase, the safety and effectiveness of medical devices are at the forefront of the regulation. To ensure that medical device manufacturers meet the requirements of the EU MDR, they must implement a risk management process that conforms to the international standard for medical device risk management, which is ISO 14971. This process must be integrated into the manufacturer QMS and must be documented and kept up to date throughout the device entire life cycle. Critical components of the risk management process are the identification of hazards related with the device and assessment of the risk posed by those hazards and the implementation of risk control measures to mitigate those risks to an acceptable level. Manufacturers must continuously monitor and review their risk related with their devices and take appropriate corrective actions if necessary. Moreover, the regulation requires that medical device manufacturers provide comprehensive information on the risk related with their devices to users, patients, and healthcare professionals. This information must be clearly communicated through the device labeling, instruction for use, and any other relevant documents. Impact and labeling. The MDR requires that medical device manufacturers to comply with strict labeling requirements which are designed to ensure that patients and users have all information to use the device safely and effectively. Compliance with the MDR's labeling requirements is essential for manufacturers who want to sell their device within the European Union. Labeling complaints under the EU MDR includes requirements for the device label, the packaging label, and instructions for use. The labeling must be clear, concise, and easy to understand, and it must provide information like intent to use of the device, how to use the device, its performance characteristics, then any warnings or precautions that must be taken, and any special storage or handling requirements. So these kind of informations shall be updated in labels or either in IFUs. One of the key changes introduced by the MDR is the requirement for manufacturer is to include a UDI on their labeling. The UDI is a code that uniquely identifies the device and provides information on its manufacturer, model, and other relevant details. This helps to ensure that device can be traced and tracked throughout their life cycle from manufacture to use and eventual disposal. Non-compliance can result in fines, legal action, and damage to their manufacturer's reputation. More importantly, non-compliance can also pose a risk to patient safety as users may not have access to the information. They need to use the device safely and effectively. Next, we are going to see about labeling requirements from Chapter 23 of UMDR. UMDR has laid out the following sections which clearly describes the labeling requirements on the mandatory information to be included in the labels. All devices should have information to identify the device, manufacturer, and safety and performance guidelines, and these information also should be updated in the manufacturing website. Chapter 23 specifies the GSPR, known as General Safety and Performance Requirements for Medical Device Labeling. And this chapter categorizes into four parts. Like part one is a general requirement for labeling, where the manufacturer must follow. Part two is set of requirements for device and packaging labels of medical device. Part three is for sterile packaging and its labels. Part four is set of requirements for IFU and user manuals or user guides. Let's see in brief. In part one, there are 5 key points that manufacturer needs to follow. Firstly, easy understanding labels. That is to say, contents of the label shall be easily understood by the user of the device. Secondly, the information required on the label shall be provided on the device itself. If not practicable, then information to users shall be available in all level of labels as practicable. Thirdly, labels shall be in human readable and machine readable format, example like RFIDs or electronic formats, that is to say electronic IFU, EIFU, or non-paper format. Fourth, about safety, warnings, precautions, contraindications, risk adverse effects, and side effects shall be notified to the user through labeling. Lastly, about symbols, internationally recognized symbols and harmonized standards should be used wherever possible. If any specific symbol is used apart from harmonized standards, then explanation of symbol or indication should be described or explained in the IFU itself. Next, label requirements. Chapter 23.2 of the MDR outlines the general requirements for labeling of medical devices. The first requirement is the name and registered trade name or registered trademark of the manufacturer and the address of its registered place of business. Through this, label shall be updated the legal manufacturer's name and address. If the legal manufacturer from outside of the European Union, then authorized representative or importer or exporter or both also needs to be included along with the legal manufacturer. Next, contents and packaging intent purpose of the device. The requirement refers to materials and information provided with the device to help users understand how to use it safely and effectively. This also includes physical contents of the packaging and any return. Next, human origin or animal origin. First, the label must clearly state that product contains human blood or plasma derivatives. At the same, label must include information on the specific derivative used in the device, like the source of the blood or plasma and any potential risk related with and its use. Next, lot number and serial number. Lot number and the serial numbers are essential components of medical device labeling under the EU MDR. Lot numbers are used to identify specific batches or groups of devices that were manufactured together and are intended to be used together. Serial number, on the other hand, are unique identifiers assigned to each individual device. The EU MDR requests that medical devices bear both lot and serial numbers on their labeling or packaging. This is to enable traceability and facilitate the identification of any devices that may be defective or require to recall. Lot and serial numbers also helps ensure the devices are being used within and their intended shelf life and expiry date. Next, expiry date. The EU MDR requests that medical device be labeled with an expiry date or a date of minimum durability. This is to ensure that devices are being used safely and effectively within their intended shelf life. Storage and special handling. The regulation outlines that a medical device which requests special storage conditions shall be labeled accordingly. Special storage conditions may include requirements such as refrigeration, protection from sunlight, or storage in a specific environment. The labeling of special storage condition is important to ensure that the device is stored properly and is not damaged or compromised in any way. It should be clearly visible and legible on the device or its packaging. Next, single use. The UMDR requests that medical device intended for single use be labeled with an indication for single use. This is to ensure that device is used only once or not reused, which can potentially lead to cross contamination or other safety risks. The labeling must indicate that device is intended for single use only and that reuse of the device is prohibited. Next, reprocessing devices. The reprocessing is the process of cleaning, disinfecting, and sterilizing a medical device intended for multiple uses. The MDA demands that medical devices that are intended for reprocessing shall be labeled accordingly. The labeling of reprocessing instructions is important to ensure that device is reprocessed correctly and is not damaged or compromised in any way during the reprocessing process. The laws, quantitative and qualitative. Quantitative labeling involves providing information about the quantitative composition of medical device or any of its components. This information may include details about concentration of active ingredients, the amount of particular substance, or the size or the dimension of the device. Then qualitative. Qualitative labeling involves providing information about the qualitative properties of medical device or any of its components. This information may include details about the intended use of the device, its performance characteristics, and any other relevant information about the device's quality and safety. Lastly, the label must be written in the languages of the member states in which the device is intended to be marketed, as well as any other languages deemed necessary by the manufacturer or regulatory authority. Next is about part 3 of chapter 23, which is for sterile packaging labels. The indication on sterile packaging is an important aspect of medical device labeling under the UMDR, as it helps to ensure that the device is used in a sterile environment and reduce the risk of contamination and infection. The packaging must be able to protect the device from any physical, chemical, or biological damage that could occur during the transportation or storage. The indication on sterile packaging is a specific requirement for medical device labeling under the UMDR. According to the regulation, medical devices that are intended to be sterile must be labeled with specific indication that conveys the following information. They are that the device is sterile, the method of sterilization used, and the date of sterilization. This indication must be clearly visible and legible on the device or its packaging, and it must be placed in a prominent position so that easily visible to the user. The indication must be provided in the official language or languages of the country or countries where the device is being marketed. In addition to the specific indication, the EU MDR also requests that the sterile packaging be designed, manufactured, and tested to maintain the sterility of the device until the packaging is opened or the device is used. It is important for healthcare providers and patients to follow the specified indication for sterile packaging to ensure the safety and effectiveness of the medical device. So before we go into the next topic, I would like to take another poll. The poll is on the right side of your screen now. The question is whether IFU is required for all medical devices as per EU MDR regulation. I repeat, whether IFU is required for all medical devices as per EU MDR regulation. Thanks for your response. I see that most of the participants are not so aware of this. I will explain. MDR states that IFU is required for high-risk devices like Class 2B and Class 3 devices, while Class 1 and Class 2A medical devices are exempted if the device can be used safely without any instruction from manufacturer. However, if these devices require specific instructions related to cleaning, sterilization, and reuse, then IFU will be required. IFU requirements. IFUs are critical components of medical device labeling as they provide user with important information on how to use the device safely and effectively. The UMDR sets out specific requirements for the content, format, and language of the IFUs to ensure that they are clear, concise, and easy to understand. Firstly, the content of IFUs must include information on the intended use of the device, as well as detailed instruction on how to use it safely and effectively. It must also provide information on any specific precautions or warnings that must be taken into account when using the device and how to manage any potential risk related with the device. Secondly, the format of IFU must be user friendly and easy to understand. This includes the use of clear and concise language, the use of diagrams or illustrations to explain the complex procedures, and the inclusions of summary sections to highlighting the key points. Thirdly, the language used in IFU must be in official language or languages of the country or countries where the device is being marketed. This ensures that users can understand the information provided in the IFU in their own language so they can use the device safely and effectively. In addition to these requirements, the UMD also requires clinical benefits and performance characteristics in the IFU if applicable. Clinical benefits. The clinical benefits of medical device refer to the positive impact it can have on patient health outcomes. This may include, for example, reducing pain or improving mobility. The UMDR requests that medical device labeling accurately reflects the device's intended clinical benefits and that any claims made about the device benefits are supported by the appropriate clinical data. Performance characteristics, it's referring to the measurable or observable properties of a device that is related to its intended use or clinical performance. It may include, for example, the device's accuracy, precision, sensitivity, and other specifications. They may also include information on the device's durability, reliability, and safety. This information helps to ensure that healthcare providers and patients have a clear understanding of how the device is expected to perform and how it can be used to achieve optimal patient outcomes. In addition to these requirements, the UMDR also requests that IFUs be regularly reviewed and updated to ensure that they remain accurate and up to date with any changes or new information related to the device. Complying with the IFU requirements under the EU MDR is crucial for medical device manufacturers, as failure to do so can lead to delays in obtaining a regulatory approval or even rejection of the device. The last topic is labeling remediation. Labeling remediation is a process of reviewing and updating the labeling documents of medical devices to ensure the compliance with the EU MDR's strict labeling requirements. This process is necessary for manufacturers who want to sell their devices within the European Union and who may have existing labeling that does not meet the requirements of the new regulation. The EU MDR introduced several new requirements for medical device labeling, including the inclusion of unique device identification (UDI), which identifies the device and provides information on its manufacturer, model, and other relevant details. The labeling remediation process involves a review of the device's existing labeling to identify any areas where it may not meet the requirements for the UMDR. This may involve updating the labeling to include the UDA, adding or revising warnings or precautions, and updating the language to make it easier and understand. The labeling remediation process can be time consuming and complex, particularly for manufacturers who have large number of active devices on the market. However, it is essential for ensuring compliance with the EU MDR and for maintaining patient safety. Manufacturers who fail to comply with the labeling requirements of the EU MDR may face as the fines, legal action, and damage to their reputation. More importantly, non-compliance can pose a risk to patient safety as users may not have access to the information they need to use the device safely and effectively. In conclusion, the labeling remediation is an essential process for medical devices manufacturers who want to sell their devices within the European Union. It involves a review of existing labeling to ensure the compliance with the EU MDR strict requirements and is necessary for maintaining patient safety and avoiding legal and financial consequences. Here is the list of our services we can help you with. First, global device labeling compliance. We support you to comply with the major global markets and their labeling requirements for medical devices. Labeling content finalization. We design, ideate, innovate, and coordinate to freeze the labeling content. And third one, labeling QMS. We have developed a three-tier review and approval with the combination of internal and external review for better quality control. Gap analysis and remediation. We provide a sophisticated and gap analysis and remediation for UMDR, US FDA, China NMP, and other regional regulations. And we have a proven strategy for UMDR labeling requirements. IFU labeling and in multi-language. We provide IFU translation adhering to different language requirements. UIFU creation and addition. Since providing UIFU is mandatory according to the UMDR and other few regulatory bodies, we bridge the legacy IFUs to eIFUs, or we will develop it from the scratch depending upon the needs. UDA compliance. We have proven strategy for formulating and execution of UDA for different products and product families. SOTA, state of the art. Assessment of usage of internationally recognized standards, especially for labeling standards like ISO 152231, ISO 20417, and etc. That's all for today. We will address all the questions that you have submitted via email. If you have any additional inquiries, please feel free to contact us using the provided contact details on the screen now. Kindly note that a recorded version of this webinar will be made available on our website in approximately 1 week from now. We'll also send you an email with the link to access the webinar at your registered email ID. Thank you for your time. Have a great day.